Finding life a bit complex? Confusing? Aware that your old strategies aren't working? Why not ask Pam and Marilyn? This is the Irreverent Therapists, and we're here to add some clarity, humor, and a bit of what might be considered blasphemy to your day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Irreverent Therapists. I'm Marilyn Bradford, and with me is Pam Holdling, the other irreverent one.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. And we have an interesting show today. We were just chatting about it. We're just taking, I suppose you can say, we're taking a look at linearity. The title of the show is Cause and Effect, the Toolkit for Limiting Yourself. Cause and effect is one of the most accepted foundations of this reality. Whenever something happens in your life, do you look for the reasons why it happened? What if cause and effect is more of an illusion than a truth? Come explore with us how easy it is to make changes in your life when you come out of cause and effect. I think that little paragraph alone would confuse some people, Pam.
I think so. Well, and actually, Marilyn and I, as we were talking just before the show started, it's like we're not even clear what we're going to talk about. And yet, at the same time, I know that this, is such a big thing of how we are always looking for, okay, I'm not liking what's happening right now. What caused this? And if I can find out what caused it, then I can change that so that this won't be happening right now. And it's all, I don't know, Marilyn, I think it was being like circular. It's like you just keep kind of looping back around because you're looking for what caused this and you're trying to change what caused this so you can get the effect you want. And then you have to look at, well, what caused, it's like a little, I don't know, I have this image of like a dog chasing its tail around and around and around and around and around when there's this whole world out there that the dog could be exploring and, sniffing around and running and jumping and playing and interacting with other dogs. And instead it's just caught in this circular loop.
Well, just when I was reading the little paragraph, I started thinking about when I was sort of a teenager, young teenager. And I kept looking for the way, and I mean, books have been written on this. It's certainly godzillions of magazine articles. How do I attract this particular boy? Is it this lipstick I wear? Is it that I play hard to get? Is it that and I had this idea that there was something I could do that would attract him. I never could seem to find it.
All those things the magazine suggested didn't work.
Well, no, but the interesting thing was I had quite a sense of randomness in my sort of teenage. Well, I think I had it from childhood because I never could seem to figure out what was going to work to create something. So I thought that, of course, I went to the wrongness of me, which is what most of us do when we're sure that we're going to do something and then it doesn't work and we go, well, I must have screwed that up. Mm-hmm. But also I had the sense that the universe, the world is completely arbitrary. And I still have a sense of that, even though I know that's not really true.
Yeah.
But this idea that you can do something to get the man or you can do just the right thing to please your boss. I don't know what it is. It's just wacky.
Well, okay, so my brain's going in about 25 different places at once. I think the first thing I'm going to say is I feel like this show should come with a warning label. It's like, warning, this is so different than how anything you're used to thinking about how things work. Don't worry if you're confused, if you're like, what are they talking about? Just listen and look at energetically how how you feel and what comes up for you. Like, as the show goes along, do you feel lighter? If so, then we're getting at something that's true for you, even if it doesn't make any cognitive sense. And you're like, what are these people talking about? If you start feeling heavier as we go along, then there's something about what we're talking about that isn't true for you. And, but I think so many of our conversations, Marilyn, are things that just, they're off the track of what people are normally doing, but not so off the track that it's like, what? And I have a feeling this might be a little bit more off the track than we've done before.
Like,
and how does it get any better than that?
How does it get any better than that? Yeah, that's very true. Because one of the things that a belief in cause and effect does is that it gives people a sense of security. I know there's a right way to do it. I know there's an answer out there. If I just blah, 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 I can find it. And when you really let go of cause and effect, it's a little disorienting.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Okay, the warning label is this show could be very disorienting to your reality.
Well, and I was also looking at a bit what creates this idea of cause and effect. And one of the things that came up for me was how much we base the world on Newtonian physics, which I
was thinking the same thing. You read my mind.
I read your mind.
We're psychic.
Great minds, psych alike. But anyway, I got really interested in quantum physics for a while, and if you know anything about that at all, you know that Newtonian physics is it only works in a very small way. There's many, many other ways.
Can I because some people might not know what Newtonian physics is. Newtonian physics is, if you drop the apple from the top of the tower, there's the pull of gravity and there's these, you can calculate the forces. And basically, you know that if you drop this apple, it's going to fall to the ground. And it's working on that bigger layer of things, not the tiny quantum layer.
Right. But
that's my non-science. Wasn't that brilliant?
That was just amazing, Pam. I think we should record it for posterity. But the point is, science will tell us, if you touch this wire, there are certain things that you can predict. And we have this whole reality that's based on predictability. And can you repeat that? Can you repeat that experiment? The thing is, if you touch these wires, you can't ever really repeat an experiment because we know that just by observing what's going on, you change the molecules. And not only that, all the circumstances are different every second.
Yeah.
But this is something to grab onto, something that seems to make sense. Anyway, I just went into a bah!
Yeah, so you just got disoriented.
I did.
So I will take over.
I'm like, where am I? Who am I?
Well, and so what I want to say to people is this is what gets created when you start to be willing to come out of cause and effect. Because, cause and effect is if I do this, then I know that's going to create XYZ, or if XYZ happens, I'm looking for what caused it. One of the ways I see this the most in working as a therapist is, whatever's going on, somebody's trying to understand it. It's like, well, if I can just understand why I made that choice, or I can understand why I act this way, or why this comes up for me all the time in this particular situation, that if I can understand it, then I know what's causing my quote problem, and I can change it and fix it, right? So, and that's what a lot of therapy, traditional therapy is based on. So what we're talking about is when you can come out of that cause and effect. So for example, say, let's make up a problem that I can talk about, Marilyn. Say every time I get in a car, I have a panic attack. Right? Okay. So I'm trying to look for, what's the cause? Well, did I have a traumatic experience in a car when I was a kid that now every time I get in the car, I have this panic attack because then I can handle, process, do therapy on that cause, and maybe I can get, right? So that's one way of going about it. The other is, wow, this is really interesting. When I get in a car, my heart races and my palms get sweaty, and I can ask a question. What is this?
Yeah.
What can I do with it? Can it change? If so, how do I change it? That's our 4 go-to questions that Marilyn and I got from Access that we love to use. So as you ask those questions, you might notice it creates a little bit of space. It's like I'm going from panic attack to what is this? What can I do with it? Can it change? If so, how do I change it? I just took myself out of causal reality, of there is a reason this is occurring and I have to figure it out, and into the space of questioning, and not even just questioning is like, I'm questioning this, but of question. And from that space, you have greater awareness. And it might be like, wow, I'm aware, maybe what you find is I'm aware that I'm going to be in an accident in 5 minutes if I get in this car and drive. or just, wow, there doesn't have to be a reason. This is what I'm creating when I get in the car. What would it take to change it? What can I be or do different that would create a different possibility here? And all those kinds of questions are taking you out of causal reality and into where the magic can happen. It's like, like we were talking about that Newtonian physics and cause and effect. It's very like, well, if you do this, then this is created and blah, 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 blah. There's no magic possible in that because you're always looking for the cause and effect. If you've ever created a moment where something just seemed to click so easily and you created so effortlessly and it was amazing, and you're like, how do I do, so then what you do is you look for, how did I do that? What caused this?
Right.
And go out of that space where
and we will be back in just a few minutes with more on cause and effect.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hey ladies, do you want to have that good hair day feeling all the time? Gentlemen, would you want your special someone to have that glow, letting you know she's feeling completely satisfied? This feeling and that glow can be yours by embracing your sexual power. So join me, Rachel Kenley, award-winning romance author, on the O-Spot. The O-Spot will guide you to that peak with guest interviews, book discussions, and conversations on the thrills of sexual empowerment. Put the zing back in your life. Come up and see me sometime on the O-Spot, live on Hump Day at 10 p.m. Eastern.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Imagine magnificence. Do you live to your unlimited potential? Join me, Margaret Ann Lembo. Awaken your consciousness. Listen to Money Magnet Moment, Gem Spot Affirmations, Essential Aromatics, and Looking Skyward Astrocast, Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. I'm Marilyn Bradford and Pam Hodling. We're the Irreverent Therapists. And we're talking about cause and effect. And I really like the example you were giving, Pam, about the panic attack and getting into the car. Because one of the things that I realized while you were talking is that if you go to cause and effect, you have to take yourself out of awareness, and it automatically, in a way, creates more difficulty for you. I was thinking of sort of a different therapy kind of situation where someone comes in and says, I'm depressed, and what I used to say early on, oh, well, what's going on? Now I say, how do you know?
I like that.
How do you know?
I'm stealing that one.
But I used to say, well, what's going on? They said, well, I'm depressed because my mother just passed away and I'm arguing with my husband. And they already have the answers. And just what you were saying with a panic attack, that prevents them from asking any questions. Then when the therapist and everybody else goes to process them on the death of their mother and their relationship, and nothing ever seems to move, and everybody gets frustrated, and nobody can figure out why, it's because they started with an answer that didn't allow for any true awareness to come into the situation. And I think this cause and effect thing is just huge for therapy, for therapists, for clients in therapy.
And, I love what you said about it creates a problem. Hang on, my kids are poking their heads in.
Okay.
So it creates it creates more difficulty because it's like it's saying this is a problem. My mother died or my grandmother died or whatever, and rather than just being what's actually up for me in the moment.
Yes. In fact, I remember someone came in and said their mother died or it was their father. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. And they said, I'm not. And I said, well, that was a wake-up call for me.
Yeah.
Not to make assumptions.
What it makes me think of is I do have a relative who's very ill, could be dying, sooner rather than later. And because I don't go to cause and effect or, defining it as right or wrong or anything like that, I'm able to just be in the moment with whatever's occurring for each of the family members and for me. And if I'm sad, I cry. If I'm feeling happy to see her, I'm happy to see her. And so I think one of the things we do when we go into cause and effect, it's like we're creating these walls of, because if I've defined this as the cause or this is what this cause is creating, then that's all that's available to me.
Yes, exactly.
So if I go to, well, I'm sad because my relative is ill, that's a box I can't get out of.
Right.
If it's like, what am I aware of in this moment? Well, might be tears, might be joy, might be busy doing other things. It's just, it's all available.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the whole thing about cause and effect with relationships, I just think that's huge. And a lot of they made me feel like this, they hurt my feelings. I may have talked about this on the show before, I'm not sure, but I'll talk about it again because it's really relevant. And that is when I first got my graduate degree and was working in a psychiatric hospital, I was the main social worker on the adult unit, and we would have these morning classes at 8 o'clock that would do things like, how to manage the world when you get out of here and, financial stuff and what is depression and all these kinds of things and feelings. Of course, everybody was into feelings those days. Feelings. But anyway, so one day I walked in. There were 13 people in the room. And I knew most of them because we had these meetings every day. And people could stay 6 to 8 weeks back then. And I just got so angry. You people are never on time. And I don't know why I waste my time with you and blah, 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 blah. And there'd been this nice, there'd been this whole spate of people, but they hurt my feelings. And so what I did was I asked everybody then to write down what their reaction was. Yeah. And I got everything from, I don't know, 1 to 10. And I said, you're having a bad day, to, I think you're on the rag, to, how could you do that to me? You abused me. So I said, look, guys, there are 13 of you in here. We have 13 different responses to what I did. If I could cause you to react in any way, there would be one response that all 13 of you would have.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah, and it really changed a lot of things for a lot of people because they couldn't fall back on that anymore. They couldn't fall back on blaming each other. They had to actually acknowledge that their reaction was their choice in the way that they reacted.
Wow. Because, this is what you're saying, but I'm going to just say it a little bit differently.
Yes.
It's like when you're willing to come out of cause and effect, you know you're creating your reality, your life, your relationships. You aren't the effect of anybody because you're out of cause and effect.
Right.
It's like total responsibility for how you're showing up, what you choose, and what you'd like to create.
Absolutely. And that's not easy. I mean, that's scary to some people, unpleasant. I don't want to be responsible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what we started out talking about at the beginning is so much of how people function in this reality. You know, when we say this reality, we mean the way most people are going about their day with the kind of set of assumptions of how things work. So most people are, functioning from this cause and effect where they are the effect of what their spouse chooses or that so-and-so snapped at them.
Yeah.
Or anything, whereas when you're willing to come out of that, it's like, what would I like to create my life as?
Yes, which is a totally different space. How would I like to react to that person who just judged me?
Yeah.
Would I like to say, hey, you're an idiot, or, that's an interesting point of view, or, wow, that person is really a snake.
Well, and what's so cool about this, okay, so right now I'm thinking about one of my kids who's going through some teenage angst. And the way this is, like what's showing up is she's tending to everything that's going on. She's referencing it to her, right? So it's all about, if you said something snappy to her, it would be all about, you're not being nice to me, not in any way able to look at what's going on in your life. And this is a very, kind of typical teenager-y thing in terms of, they get very focused on themselves. But, or they can. I've seen that a lot. But, but basically it's just so clear to see because a few months ago it wasn't quite as much this extreme and it's just increasing. But I look at that and so I could buy into it, right? If she's saying, oh, Mom, I can't believe you did blah, blah, blah. You're ruining my life, blah, blah, blah. Right?
Ruining my life.
I have the choice in that moment to jump into that cause and effect and be part of it and be as limited by it as she is. Or I can choose to ask myself some questions and not go into the cause and effect, show up very differently in a way that, and not with trying to like get her out of it or not, but just that I don't have to be the effect of her choices. Right. And so that's one of the things I really like about getting out of cause and effect is in your relationships, you're no longer at the mercy of, at the effect of the people around you and they're having a bad day. It's like, okay, great. Enjoy your bad day.
Right.
I'm choosing to not play in that playground and play in my own playground.
Well, and it makes me think of, the old style, the alcoholic and the codependent. And the codependent makes their whole life that they're the effect of the alcoholic. And as Gary once mentioned, what a real codependent is someone who wants to blame everybody else for what's going on and actually refuses to create their own life, which I totally agree with. Mm-hmm. But it became a role that mostly women, a few men played, but it so buys into this idea that you're like this pathetic thing that is being done to.
Yeah.
they did it to me, he did it to me, how can I be happy when, all this kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and, what that makes me think of is like, say you find yourself going to that pathetic place a lot, you can actually change it. You can.
What?
Yes, you can. You've been buying the lie that you're at the effect of all these things. And with actually just a few simple tools, you can start to create something different and, have more and more of that space of actually choosing and creating your life, not, well, I can't live because this person is alcoholic.
Yes. Or I can't do this I can't create my life until I lose 50 pounds, and I can't lose weight because that's your clue you're into cause and effect.
Yeah.
Because of my family genes.
Yeah.
And it's like you just set up this whole thing of why you can't basically do anything.
Yeah. Well, and that just made me think of like all the words that we use that are related to cause and effect. And we might not have time now to go into all of them, but like you mentioned, because. Yeah. If you go to because, you're that. And why? That's another one. It's like, what if there is no why? I chose it. This is what it created.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
Because it opens up so much more space. And that's really what cause and effect does, is to shut you down into a box that you absolutely cannot get out of.
Yeah.
So I like that.
Well, you can't get out of as long as you're doing cause and effect. You can easily get out of it.
Oh, right. If you make
something different.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, we are about to go to another break, so I think we could hum a tune for like 10 seconds.
For 10 seconds till our music starts. And we'll talk more about this when we come back.
What that's going to create. And we'll be back.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Eros Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Simone Milasas would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com. Join Elliot Jolish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jolish Hour, as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jolish Hour. The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. We're the Irreverent Therapists, and we're talking about the insanity of cause and effect and how much it can actually limit your life. And Pam, you've kept mentioning question like, hello, Marilyn, question.
Yes, I did.
So let's go into a little bit about that. What's the difference between question and cause and effect?
Well, I mean, so I'm not even sure how, how to address this.
Oops.
So actually, let's have people look at the energy of it.
Oh,
okay?
cool. Yes.
So and one of the areas of life where I've used this a lot is business. So I'm going to use that as an example. So listen to me talk, and you see if you feel light and expansive and like yay, or if you're like getting like heavy and contracted and a stomach ache and you could barf. Okay. So I'm trying to do my business, and they've told me exactly how to do it. And if I just do this, and this, I will be successful. And I did this, and this, and I'm not being as successful as I thought I would, and I don't know what to do. And so I'm going to read this book. Yeah, I'm going to read this book, and that'll fix it, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's one kind of energy, and that's cause and effect, right? Because it's like I'm looking for, if I do these steps, that'll be successful. If I get the right information, then I'll be successful. Okay, so another way of going about business. What would I like to create with my business today? What's possible for me in my business that I haven't ever even considered? What can I be or do different that would create greater than I can possibly imagine? And you'll notice these questions aren't like, okay, how do I balance my bank book? Or how am I gonna advertise my business? I might ask, okay, what am I aware of that I could create to get the word out about my business? Like anything that's really a question where I don't have a cause and effect or a conclusion already ingrained in the question, it starts to create different possibilities. So now looking at the energy of it. So here I go. Who am I today, and what grand and glorious adventures am I going to have? What would I like to create, and what else is possible? So, does everybody? Are you feeling a little lighter?
Woo-hoo!
And like, oh, hey, I might actually like to get up and move and actually take action on my business. So Marilyn, does that start to get at what we're talking about?
I think that's awesome. Yeah, okay. It really, really does. And what it brought to mind was I was talking with someone the other day, and they were like, they were not operating out of question. And I'm like, well, what's going on? She was saying, well, I just have to do this, and I don't want to do it. And I'm like, have you asked a question? Mm-hmm. Well, no, but I mean, come on. Now, I need to be right. I need to get this to my editor. I need to do this. And I said, have you asked something like, is now the time? Yeah. And that's a great question to ask when you're getting down on yourself for not doing something, because cause and effect tells us that if we do this at this time, then this will happen. Have you ever noticed sometimes when you do this at this time that this doesn't happen? That could be the name of my next book. I did this at this time and then it didn't happen. And that's the operating out of cause and effect, because it doesn't. The world, the universe, the reality, not the reality, I'm just going to say the world and the universe and consciousness we live in doesn't operate in a linear manner.
Yeah.
And cause and effect is always about linearity. Always, always.
So, and
the past. Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it just something popped into my head. That cause and effect is also always about time and the past.
And what happens when you start looking for what caused this and, blah, 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 you're actually energetically, you're bringing the past forward. So when you find you keep creating the same crap again and again, if you actually stop looking for what caused this, what's the reason why they chose this, what's the reason why I chose this, it's like, and you function more from this space of question, you stop recreating the past and you can actually just create.
Yes. And what's the difference between recreating the past and just create?
You can change things.
Yay!
Different.
Yeah.
Not just keep creating the same problem or the same relationship or the same whatever.
Well, what if, here's another question. What if you had no past? What if you woke up tomorrow morning with total amnesia, but enough of awareness to be able to function? What would you create?
See, I might sound insane, but that seems so appealing. Oh, that would be so much fun.
It certainly would be different. But you were talking about business, and I've really noticed that this whole cause and effect thing came up recently in Access. Causal, well, that's getting a little, I think, out of range of the show. But anyway, and I was noticing, because of course I have this business, Right Recovery for You, that I was referencing the past. Well, the last time that we marketed this teleclass this way, we had blah, 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 blah. And then I would try to do it and it wouldn't work at all.
You tried to repeat the past.
I tried to repeat the past.
Because I proved to myself that if I do this cause, I'll have this effect.
Right. And guess what? It didn't work. It didn't work. Because you cannot repeat the past. Everything is always different. Everybody's moved on. They have, everybody, the space, the energy, everything is different. But it was just such a good reminder to get out of anything like that. And most marketing, I think, is based on cause and effect.
Yes. It's like, if I can create the right cause in your reality by my advertisement, I'll have the effect of you buying my product.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So I wanted to pick up, because you talked about linear, and I just wanted to expand on that, kind of give an example. So you might be like, what do you mean by linear or not linear and creating? It's like, so linear creating would be, okay, if I jump through XYZ hoop for my business, that will create the success I'm looking for. That's, linear. Non-linear is when I'm functioning from the space of creation, no matter what area of my life, it's all contributing to creating more in every area of my life. So one of the examples I use is like, I'll be doing the dishes, and I'll ask, what contribution can I be to my business right now? And by being willing to be nonlinear, that it doesn't have to be sitting in front of my desk working to be contributing to my business, energetically, everything I'm choosing and creating is contributing to my business, is contributing to my family, is contributing to my body. So it's not, okay, I can either work on my business or be with my kids. Mm-hmm. Whichever one I'm choosing in the moment contributes to all of it. And, I heard someone talk about this in terms of creating classes, like, you're talking to this person over here and you're doing an intro over there, and you're, sitting out in the sun enjoying the sunshine, and all of that is contributing to creating your classes if you're willing to function from the space where everything contributes to everything else, which is nonlinear.
Well, and what that brought up for me is just a slightly different way of saying it, is that cause and effect depends on you seeing the world as each discrete thing is separate and not connected.
Yeah, incredible separation.
Yeah. Whereas when you get out of it and you create, there is this, just what you were talking about, there is this awareness that everything is interconnected and everything moves according to everything else, sort of. Mm-hmm. And it's really cool. I've been walking. I'm on this new, it's not really a regime, but I do get into habits and things. But anyway, my body really likes it and I like it. And it's so beautiful in the mornings. I've been walking an hour. This morning I walked an hour and a half. And I'm so aware when I'm let me rephrase that. When I choose to be aware, rather than I really better get back and start on my work and blah, blah, blah. When I'm like, okay, wow, this is amazing. All right, what can I be aware of here? The earth, and the water is running like crazy in the river right now, and I just love that, and the trees. And when I'm willing to be in the moment and be aware, what gets created just energetically is phenomenal. Yeah. And what I've noticed, because then it's like boom, 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 and these ideas, and just, oh yeah, and I can do that, and this could be interesting, and what if we do this? Yeah. Whereas if I'm in cause and effect, I'm contracted down to basically a black hole on legs. So,
I love that.
So, there's really nowhere to go, and any idea that might pop up just gets sucked into the garbage because it doesn't match the effect I've already decided upon.
Well, and I mean, I love that example, because it's also, okay, so linear reality, cause and effect would be, okay, I've decided I want to lose weight, so I'm going to walk every day, and because when you get exercise, that makes you lose weight. And you're limiting you and your body to just creating that change that you've decided walking is good for your body, right?
Yes.
When you're willing to...
Can I interrupt 1 minute?
Yes.
The cause and effect is walking is good for your body. What I've been doing is asking my body, well, would it be fun? Would you like to walk? Yes.
Yes.
So,
and that creates something totally different because you're walking not from the cause and effect of this is good for my body, but the energy that's being created, the contribution it is to your body, and it can be so much more. It creates so much more than what that limited, this is healthy.
Yes, exactly.
I'm being healthy right now. I mean, you're contributing to, your well-being and the energy of creation in your whole life when you're doing that walking with awareness, not from cause and effect. And it's the same action, right? You can walk out your door in the morning and you can be doing it from the space of cause and effect or the space of space and question and creation. And that's true with whether it's a relationship, you can be in that relationship from cause and effect or from that space of creation.
Yeah, and cause and effect always takes you away from being present.
Yes.
That's one thing I really became aware of with this walking. When I would get any kind of cause and effect or, well, I really should get back or this or that, when I got out of question, then it began to get that like when you were doing the energy example earlier, it began to get that sort of wonky energy to it. So how's that for being right on the mark when we're going to break?
We are so good.
And we will be back.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Have you bought into the idea that you have to work hard for your money, that business is hard? I will share some dynamic access consciousness tools to get you out of your own way so you can create a business that actually succeeds. Join me, Simone Millisers, on The Joy of Business at 4 p.m. Mondays Eastern.
Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Marilyn Bradford, joined with Pam Hodling, and we're talking about cause and effect. And one of the things that we haven't mentioned so much is the whole idea of choice. We have talked about question, but we haven't talked about choice. and that it's actually that choice creates. Now, that's probably going to be an odd concept to some people. Any ideas, Pam? I keep throwing things at you. Lobbing responsibility.
I had, because Marilyn and I are access facilitators, access consciousness, and, we go to access classes. I think I'd been going to access classes for 4 years when it hit me like, wait a second, choice creates. And what that aha was for me was, okay, so in Access, we do a lot of talking about, getting out of the polarity of it's right and wrong, it's good or bad. It's like, being an allowance of things. There's all kinds of tools like that we use. And so I had done a lot of clearing to where, I was no longer, judging every choice I made as I made a right choice or a wrong choice. But there was still some way in which I was like, well, if I choose with greater awareness and consciousness, everything is going to work out fine. Or something. Like there was still some like basic level of there's the choices that are going to create greater and the choices that are going to create lesser. And I have to, I don't know how to describe this, but suddenly it was like, oh, choice creates. It just creates. Every time I choose, it creates. I can look at what's being created and go, yep, that works for me. I'm going to choose more of that. Or, not really working for me. I'm going to choose something different. But what we tend to do is either not choose because we're trying to not choose the wrong choice, or we try to look at the cause and effect and figure out what's going to be the right choice to make to create the effect that we've decided is the right effect. And all of that just stops you in your tracks. Whereas if you're willing to just choose, you just keep creating.
Well, and when you explained it that way, Pam, a little light bulb went off for me, because what most of us do in the beginning, what you did and I did too, was choice, the right choice or the wrong choice. When you're in right and wrong, you're actually in cause and effect.
Yes.
And it's because cause and effect is all about judgment. This is going to do this. Conclusion, which is another form of judgment. So it's taking choice and it's contracting it down to something that's not very useful. It's not really choice. Whereas real choice doesn't have an expectation, a conclusion to it.
Yes.
Real choice is just, wow, I think I'm going to get off the couch. Oh, that was interesting. Now what? Well, I'm going to have a martini. That didn't sound too good. And that's the other thing. Choice creates awareness. And it's like if you ask someone, what do you want to eat? And they go, oh, I don't care. I'll eat anywhere. And you go, well, how about McDonald's? They're like, oh, no. So,
there are some choices I don't care to choose.
Right, exactly. But, it brings us back to being aware of what we would really like to choose or not like to choose, not so much because it's right or wrong, but what is energetically expansive and what is contractive. I mean, it was so weird today because I spent the entire day working on taxes, but it was really expansive. I hadn't come to the conclusion. I was like, that would be just awful, which I used to do. Now that's cause and effect. If I have to spend the whole day working on my taxes, I think I'll die. This was like, whippy!
Yeah, Marilyn texted me. She's like, I'm working on my taxes.
I'm going to have to skip some calls I could be on.
Well, what this makes me think of is so many times we choose something and then we kind of backtrack to find the reason and justification for why we chose it. And that's like another way of doing cause and effect. So, for example, I have a relative who's quite ill, and on Sunday, when my cousin called me, I was just like, oh, I had the awareness to travel out there and see her would be really light and expansive. Now, I could give you reasons. I could say, okay, I'm aware that my going would mean a lot to her, would mean a lot to her family, would blah, 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 blah. And all of that's reason and justification to make it, this is why I'm choosing this.
Right.
When what it really was for me was just the awareness of what would be created for me, for my daughter who came with me, for, all my relatives I was going to see. It was just the awareness that this is going to create something greater. And I don't have to define it. I don't have to know why. I don't have to come up with a reason. I can just choose it and receive that greater that's being created.
I like that. I like the not defining it, because I think that's what we try to do too.
Yeah.
We quote choose, or we go into something and then it's got to look this way. But like, I'm going to choose to find a relationship. And of course, he's going to be 6'3". He's going to be a lawyer. He's going to have dark brown hair. He's going to do blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that totally cuts off everything.
Yeah. And so, it's like sometimes you have the awareness, or sometimes you just choose it and you're creating, and then you start to add on all the conclusions and stuff and stop it in its tracks.
Yes.
So, and you might be like, well, how do I know? How do I know if I'm creating? Is it light? Is it expansive? Is it, because really that's like the barometer, is if you're asking questions or choosing things or whatever, and you're getting like more and more condensed and contracted and bleh, there is some conclusion, some judgment, something causal that you are attaching to all of that. If you're asking questions and choosing, and it's just constantly expanding and lighter and greater and more possibilities, then it's a question without conclusion attached. It's choice without going to the causal.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing about it, one of the things about cause and effect and choosing with an expectation is that you tend to stick yourself on that linear line. It's like, okay, I chose to go after a guy like this. And the real choice, you can truly change it in every 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Every 10 seconds. And I think that's something that people don't get.
Well, and when you're going on that causal line, you can only create as great as what you've already decided the cause and the effect can be.
Yes.
When you're willing to come from this other space of coming outside of causal reality, like from there, it's like you can create something so much greater that's beyond what you imagined and can imagine could be, because you're willing to keep asking questions and function from that space of the awareness of the energy. And that's, to me, where the magic in life occurs.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, just what you said, that as long as you're functioning from cause and effect, you already have limited, well, I mean, it sounds so, we've already said it, but just in a new way, perhaps, you've limited what can show up to what you know.
Yes.
There's no space for something to show up that's even better than anything that you ever imagined. And it's just that whole question thing that allows for that. I mean, this may be kind of an odd example, but, when we were flying to New Zealand and trying to coordinate, United changes part of the ticket, and that makes me drop all the seats out that I had reserved and paid special for on Air New Zealand. And I was talking to the woman, and I'm like, well, that's interesting. Well, and instead of going to cause and effect, well, they caused that, they need to fix it. I'm like, I wonder what that could create. So we just got to talking and chatting. And I find that sometimes just chatting with people actually, like in that situation, actually creates the space for something different to show up. And so I was asking about, Economy Plus, and she's like, well, there's only one seat left and it's really expensive. And I'm like, well, this is kind of a nutty question, but what about business class? And she said, well, this is amazing. Who would have thought we're having some kind of a weird sale and it's actually cheaper to go business than premium economy? I'm like, I'm on, put me down.
I'll say yes to that.
But it was that willingness not to be caught in well, United screwed up or they screwed up and now my trip is ruined and I'm going to have to sit in this funky middle seat in the plane. And, and that's probably where I would have gone 10 to 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't willing to see that by choosing and asking questions, there might be a possibility that was beyond anything I thought. And believe me, flying business class on Air New Zealand was beyond anything I imagined I'd be doing.
Mm-hmm. And wasn't it awesome when you did it?
Was totally awesome when I did it. I'm hooked. I have to have a lot more money in my life now. Now that's cause and effect. What if I could just win seats or they get given to me or who knows?
Right. So what are we doing next week, Marilyn?
Oh, yeah. Next week, I'm going to be at the airport. So I'm not going to be doing anything. Actually, I might call in. I just can't. I
can
just
be a call-in question caller person.
But Ann Maxwell, who is also an amazing therapist, she works mainly with kids, and she has just done some phenomenal stuff. And she co-authored a book called "You Can't Teach a Fish to Climb a Tree." You wouldn't teach a fish to climb a tree. Anyway, she's going to be the guest on, I can't talk now in the last minute, the guest on the show talking about kids done different.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a truly amazing, interesting show because she is irreverent as we are, and she'll have a very unique perspective, and a lot of it will be about all her experiences with kids. So see you next week.
Goodbye, everybody.